large market from a tourism perspective, and many other parts of our economy in the same situation. But 2.5 years ago, we embarked ourselves into a very aggressive diversification program to expand our customer base all over the world. In view of the disacceleration of the U.S. market, we decided that it was not very wise to continue to be placing all of our eggs in one basket. And this strategy of diversification has really paid back, and I will share some figures and facts with you. Let me begin by just illustrating that the 1 billion mark is expected to be surpassed during 2012 from the point of view of international arrivals in the tourism sector. So it is a huge sector from a global perspective. Worldwide tourism, in terms of arrivals, has been growing at a compounded average rate of growth of 2.5% over the last 3 years. And we do see, however, the increased pace of the developing and emerging markets as opposed to those stable economies. From the point of view of receipts on the right-hand side of the slide, you can appreciate that from the point of view of spend, the emerging economies have been growing at a far greater pace than the developed markets, from 3.7% in the emerging economies against 3% in the developed economies. Tourism is as well an important contributor to the GDP and employment of countries, as we all know. You can appreciate the aforementioned illustration in this slide that of these three economies, the US, Mexico, and Spain. And you can appreciate that in the case of Mexico and Spain, where visa facilitation has been implemented over the last couple of years, that has really helped us and contributed to accelerate business from a tourism perspective. And you can appreciate that the percentage of contribution of the GDP and from an employment point of view is far greater in the case of Mexico and Spain as opposed to the US. Now, this is about to change in the US, as we all know, as the United States government has realized that what they call the lost decade over the last 10 years from a tourism perspective, and very soon it seems that they will have, as Jamal knows, Brazilians will be able to travel to the US most likely without the need of a visa, which is only going to be contributing to the US economy as well, which is very positive. Direct job creation derived from tourism is very relevant as well. The emerging markets have realized that situation and are putting much more resources and investment to boost jobs as a whole. Now, this is the case of Mexico, which I wanted to illustrate with you today. As I mentioned before, a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago, we started to see that outbound travel from the US to the rest of the world had been diminishing. Over the last 3 years, Americans cut back in their travels abroad by 10.4%. And in view of that, and being the United States the #1 generator of business through Mexico, we had to do something about this. Therefore, with this strategy of diversification that we implemented in the other international markets, primarily those emerging economies such as Brazil, China, Russia in our case, that not only compensated the downturn of the US business to Mexico, but allowed us to even grow business to the point that by the end of 2011, we were able to have a record year as far as volume of tourists is concerned to Mexico, arriving to the figure of 23.4 million international tourists that visited Mexico as a whole, surpassing the benchmark of 2008, which was the banner year for tourism, not only to Mexico, but for the entire world. So you can appreciate in this slide that all of the countries showed a very robust level of growth of 23%, offsetting the reduced demand out of the U.S. market. Now, as far as, again, the international visitors to Mexico, what this slide illustrates is how these emerging economies have been growing at very, very dramatic rates of growth as a whole, and to Mexico. And with the exception of Canada, which is the one developed country that continued to grow at an important pace, you can appreciate there that over the last 3 years, the level of growth of Canada, as I mentioned before, has been really dramatic. But putting Canada aside, the emerging economies are the ones that really have helped us in really boost tourism in the case of Mexico. So that's something to really pay attention to. Now, from the point of view of economic growth and job creation, we believe that the tourism sector is one of the sectors that has been a little bit under the radar as far as the importance of contributing to job creation and prosperity. And one of the most important mechanisms to boost tourism is clearly visa facilitation. And as a matter of fact, in the case of Mexico, along with this diversification strategy that we implemented 2.5 years ago, that had to come hand in hand with a whole revamping of our visa system. In markets such as Brazil nowadays, not only the processes and procedures to acquire a visa to visit Mexico for Brazilians moved from 2 weeks that it used to take to get a visa, but to 48 hours. But furthermore, more importantly, is the system that we implemented, which is an online system that is called a travel permit, that you can access online and get an automatic permit to enter Mexico right away. The information is sent to the carrier, to the airline that you're going to be traveling in, and upon arrival to the front desk of the airline, your permit will be reflected there, and therefore makes it very easy, very fast, and very efficient. The same is applicable to other markets such as Russia. Russia, barely 3 years ago, Mexico used to receive only 5,000 Russians. Last year, we received 50,000 Russians in Mexico, and growing at a very fast pace. And again, that came hand in hand with the system of travel permits online, plus accelerating the processes to issue visas. And again, the same case applied to China. China, very complex market to enter. Yes, Chinese are traveling in huge numbers internationally. 40 million Chinese traveled last year, and is expected to grow to 100 million in the next 5 years. Most of that outbound travel by Chinese is experienced within intra-Asia, obviously, but still at 10% of that number travel outbound. So we had to do something about that, and since then, as you probably noticed from the percentages, we were able to grow business from China in very important numbers. For G20 countries, and this is a good opportunity just to share with you that, as you probably know, the G20 summit will take place in Los Cabos, Mexico, in barely a week from now, actually next week, as a matter of fact. So we're very excited about that. And tourism is one of the topics that, under the leadership of Secretary Gloria Guevara, my boss, has been incorporated in the G20 agenda as one of the topics to be discussed. Improvements in visa facilitation may increase tourism receipts up to $206 billion and can generate 3.1 million additional jobs for the year 2015. That's the estimation that was calculated coming out of the T20, which means the tourism, the Minister of Tourism of the 20 largest economies that met in Mérida, Mexico 3 weeks ago. Most of the gains from visa facilitation comes from tourism, coming from these emerging markets as opposed to the developed markets. And for the U.S., in such a need to boost job creation, as we all know, visa facilitation is estimated will generate anywhere between 148 to 808,000 additional jobs by the year 2015. 6 weeks ago, we were fortunate to host the WTTC Regional Summit of the Americas in Riviera Maya in the Cancun area of Mexico. The WTTC stands, for those who are not familiar with that, it stands for the World Travel and Tourism Council. And one of the most important topics that were discussed in this council was precisely the contribution of tourism to the overall economies of the Americas. And as you can appreciate there, the contribution is enormous. It's estimated to $666 billion, more than 3 times the GDP of the automotive manufacturing industry, 1/3 larger than the global chemicals and mining industry. The total contribution to the GDP in the Americas is calculated to be 8.6% of the total GDP of the countries within the Americas. The sector of tourism is one of the leading employers of the region. It's calculated to be 15 million, surpassing the job creation of mining, 2.5, chemicals manufacturing, 2.5, automotive, 4 million, financial services, 10 million. Travel and tourism will grow faster than most of the sectors in the Americas. It's estimated to be 3.6% over the next 10 years. That compares to mining 1.5%, education 2%, chemicals 2.5%, and financial services 3.4%. So